Welcome back to MEF Infinite Edge. If you're just tuning in today, we're focusing on the growing necessity of collaboration and federations for enterprise digital transformation and the role MEF is playing in enabling a global federation of network, cloud, and technology providers. So far, we've explored this space from a few different vantage points. An executive panel on the evolution of alliances, a keynote on automation and agile drive transformation, and tying it all together, an overview of MEF's work. And because I'm a Trekkie, we're also having some fun and making some comparisons to the Star Trek series, which is why we are shifting to Warp Speed Factor 5 with market insights from highly regarded analysts, Rosemary Cochran from Vertical Systems Group and Rick Talbot, ACG Research. I'm pretty sure they won't hold back, but just in case, set phasers to stun, shields up, resume course.
Hi, I'm Rick Talbot, Principal Analyst with ACG Research, and we have with us today Rosemary Cochran, who is Principal and Co-founder of Vertical Systems Group. Welcome.
Thank you, Rick. Nice to be here.
So we're talking about federated systems today and federated networks. The general concept, of course, is you have independent networks that are able to operate and some type of overarching set of rules for the road. But the concept of federated systems has been really, is very, very broad, with getting as broad as social systems or social networks and then computer networks. But we're really focusing on things more like what the MEF works with, and so it's more of a telecom type of approach to this. So let me start off with asking, what are the driving needs for federated networks and them focusing on digital transformation?
Right. Well, I think that's a great place to start. And I'd say the answer is really urgency. And the urgency is being driven by the COVID pandemic, unfortunately. And what we're seeing is that, if we talk about digital transformation, it really means change. And many of us resist change, put it off. If things don't happen, you really typically need some kind of catalyst to make a change, if like service functionality or doesn't work or an application isn't there. But what we're seeing this past year is that COVID has become a mega catalyst for advancing digital transformation. And this has been underscored by the research we do on an ongoing basis, looking at top business challenges for service providers worldwide. And at the beginning of 2020, the markets were great, and it was pre-pandemic. SD-WAN was very hot, and a lot of the challenges had to do with tuning service platforms and onboarding new customers. But by the middle of 2020, as we all know, the pandemic was just disrupting everything worldwide. There were supply chain issues, a lot of things. And the number one challenge at that point, by far, cited by service providers, was that they wanted to help customers accelerate digital transformation projects that were either underway or planned. And part of that was also about security integration, because many of the workforce was shifting to home, which also caused a need for more secure, flexible, collaborative solutions. So it became very evident that businesses and enterprises that had a strong digital presence and cloud-based operations were really better prepared than those who hadn't. So the need for federations became important because some of the piece parts needed to be there. And as a result, the partnerships for collaboration became evident, and we saw a lot of deals being made, reseller deals, other agreements, acquisitions for things like security and edge devices and team collaboration and video, of course. So that then pivoted a little bit more at the beginning of this year, where the service providers told us they were just much more focused on transformations compelled by the new realities of operating through the pandemic. And the major goals were really continuing to help plan transformations and multi-cloud connectivity, along with more automation, particularly of service delivery and customer experience issues. So the urgency is real. There's definitely a need for federations that are focused on transformation, and the challenge is really just making it happen. So moving to the next step, then, Rick, how would you see that federated networks would facilitate this digital transformation?
It really goes back to can businesses provide for themselves an ecosystem that they need, or do all the businesses need to go to a single ecosystem for all of them? The concept of federated systems is that each one should be able to develop its own system and that suits its own needs. And of course, the federation is required in order to provide those rules of the road. How do we communicate between those? There's some very significant complexities in that, but the general concept is that we maximize the benefit for each individual enterprise by letting it have its own ecosystem. So that the example I'd use is that other ecosystems, others have tried to give us ecosystems that work for everyone. They don't say Microsoft Teams or Google, and we see that that just doesn't fit everyone's requirements. So it just goes back to this independence that we can have. So that being what we want, then are there are components that we have to have in order to get that? How do we do that?
Yeah, well, that's a great question because, as you say, not one entity cannot do all of the things that they want to do, although some tries, certainly. And it's so in order to form a federation, it's almost like I think of it as a startup because they need to kind of come together with a mission. And the mission has to be, what's the business case for service? What is the target market? What are the catalysts for adoption? For how is it going to work for migration from existing services? How will the services be priced, sold, supported? What about competition? All the things that basically go into a business case, but a mission for that federation. And then some of the partnership issues have to do with network ownership and asset values, quite frankly, is, who is going to benefit from that, from the technology and for the outcome. Other considerations might be investments from private sources or from government-funded sources, and we're seeing a lot of that these days, and that may impact the mission going forward for any kind of federation. And then just team. The team, it makes a big difference, the people coming together, and all the partners within a federation really need to buy into the mission about what they're trying to achieve. If everyone's not on the same page, then those things don't work. And then connectivity makes sense for fiber backbone, access capacity, and security, of course, where, as I say, somehow administer security everywhere. And the bottom line is, if you put all that together, a lot of moving parts and forming a federation, it's, again, like a startup. And like startups, there are many potential ways that has outcomes. So that's a very broad framework for delivering services with federated involvement. But let's look at, again, back to what the networks are going to do. Rick, do you think federated networks also facilitate the expansion of capacity as these services put additional traffic on the network?
Well, yes, that's an important item that we have, is that the federated networks are going to depend on the capacity being underneath them so that they can operate. And happily, the industry is moving towards, and this is the network itself, the network infrastructure is moving in a direction that would enable this software driving of the different functions and virtualization functions that we have. So this is a general direction which actually is a little bit analogous to the federated systems, and that is that we have what we would call domains, where the set of rules pertain to different parts of the network, and then you have to have orchestration between the domains. There's an understanding that different parts of the network are going to operate somewhat differently. Many times it's because there are different vendors in the different portions, though we have some pretty good interoperability, particularly at the higher layers between, let's say, routers. I mean, we don't have issues of, well, you know, I've got to buy router A because I have other routers of router A, and they won't talk if we've got router A and router B. I wish I could say that was the case down at the transport layer. That's not the case at the transport layer. So we really do need some type of control or orchestration between those. So yes, that's the way that we're handling it there. So so I understand that really we've got some industry gatherings that are helping move us towards federation and towards the digitalization. Can you give us, shed a little light on what's going on there?
Yes, I think that's certainly been very successful with forums, associations. They're calling different things, but basically, the first benefit is bringing together a broad range of companies that would potentially be part of the federations working on digital transformation, and the members or the participants really contribute by helping to develop and share and socialize industry standards and definitions and specs. And notably, I think over the years, MEF has been very proactive about encouraging input from both technical side and the business side, and given serious consideration as well to kind of real world implementations and monetization. And the reason I think specifications are key is because you really need a common and clear understanding of what the collaboration is about. To that end, the use of APIs and service orchestration, like you mentioned, is the MEF-LSO APIs and TM Forum suite of open APIs are helping to do that automation of manual processes and streamline transactions. Other forums and alliances are contributing as well, like the MOBI initiative, which is developing blockchain-based standards focused on secure exchange of data. And I think an important point is that industry standards like these, once they're implemented, that take care of the low-touch automation and maintenance of standard tasks, and it frees up the resources for the higher touch, higher value, more complex digital transformation projects. So that's definitely a benefit, as is the proof of concept efforts that are going on. An example is the MEF-LSO APIs being used for smart bilaterals and for distributed ledger technology that enables dynamic interprovider settlement. And then a final quick note is on certifications. And attainment of certification ensures compliance with standards, and it's also become a competitive differentiator for MEF certifications. And we've been tracking those certifications for a long time, and there definitely is a correlation between market share leaders and certification. So with all those resources helping accelerate digital transformations, how do the end users benefit? For instance, how would ordering from these federated networks work, Rick?
So what this enables us to do is move from where we have been, which is you call up some business entity and tell them what you want, and then it takes some amount of time for them to put together orders and for that to be sent to all the different locations. The MEF has really helped us streamline that so that we could put up, for instance, Ethernet connections from end to end, even though there are multiple carriers involved in it. Now what we're doing, particularly as we go to federated systems, is move up the complexity and richness of the applications that we're doing. So let's say that someone wants some type of information, and that person knows that somewhere else they have it, and the billing on this type of service might be more complex than just simple carrier to carrier billing, and then one bills the customer. So you have this concept of being able to go to the first, maybe your local carrier, and say, I need this information, and then they're able to go across and put together the connection that you have so that you could pull this information. All the while, the billing components are being set up, and everything that is required for the service itself. So that's the direction that we're going with it, and what the federated systems would allow us to do, and allow the end user to do. Yeah, I really appreciate the insights that you've had, Rosemary. This has been really interesting.
Yes, well,
thanks, and I hope.
Likewise, Rick. Thanks.
Yeah, so I hope y'all all have a good and safe day.